Hi, I'm Don, and this is The Hobbyist Geek. Welcome back, y'all. Today we have another viewer suggestion. Viewer Bob Holleran has suggested the Ugears licensed Harry Potter Quidditch Pinball machine. This looks awesome. Let's get this packaging open, see what comes inside. All right, here is the packaging for our pinball machine. Lots of little catchphrases: assemble me, catch the snitch, an arena where young wizards and witches can become champions, and of course, this beautiful product image. Mechanical, no glue connection. So supposedly we won't need any glue. I guess we'll find out. On the back side, we have some dimensions here. So a bit more than a foot long and 7 inches tall. Another, about a foot wide. So look at that. Look at these beautiful images. 14 plus, 402 parts. This is a level 5 out of 5 difficulty. So let's get this plastic off. All right, with the cellophane gone, let's see what we have here. All right, obviously we've got our wood. I love that smell of fresh wood. We've got this little box here. There's something inside. Let's see what we got here. Oh, okay. We've got our marbles. Very, very cool. All right. For the wood, of course, as always, we'll lay it all out to give you a much clearer view. Let's see if there's anything else in here. There is indeed. All right. Lots of these rubber bands. Little sandpaper. Okay, these are rubber as well. Little rubber washers of some sort. Another rubber band. And this is a very thin cardboard paper product kind of thing. Okay, here's where we've got all of our decoration, some instruction, all of that kind of stuff, the flags. All right, well, we'll see where all of that goes as we build, of course. We've got this. This has got to be some wax, though we will not use this. I'll show you what I use in a minute. Here are our instructions. Look at this. 83 pages. 83 pages. Wow. All right. The instructions themselves look fairly self-explanatory, but obviously we will get into it. And of course, we've got our wood. So let me go ahead and lay this out, and I'll be right back. Alrighty, oh, look at all of this. We've got 8 sheets of wood, and they are all numbered. All the way up here, you can see the number on them. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And we've got all of our paper products right here, along with our rubber bands and other inventory. There are 4 different types of rubber bands. This is the same size as these, but it's thicker, or it seems to be. So I'm keeping it separate just in case. There is no inventory anywhere that I can find, so I'm hoping that's how many we're supposed to get. I didn't even count them because I've got nothing to count against. As long as I've got enough by the end of the project, I don't care. So there is that. One other thing, the numbers on the pieces are all over the place. So you can see here on sheet 8, you've got part 17. And clearly there's a lot more than 17 parts on the other sheets. So the instructions, it took a little bit to find this, by the way. At the beginning of every page, or not page, but every step, right here, it'll tell you which sheet to find the parts on, or sheets in this case. So for this first page of instructions, I will need parts from sheet 1 and sheet 3, and they're even kind enough to highlight where they are in there, so it should be easy to find. All right, not much in the way of tools for this project. I do have some Eileen's tacky glue, just in case the instructions were incorrect and glue is required, or if I mess up. So I will keep that to the side just in case. I've got my own 600 grit sandpaper, got a box cutter for any hard to remove pieces that I'd like some help with, and I've got some Impressa wood lubricant. Now, this has been rebranded since I bought it. It is now Impressa Drawer Slide Wax, and it's got a red label instead of blue, in case you're looking to get some of your own, along with a paintbrush to apply it. All right, let's get some parts out and get started on this thing. Alrighty-o, here are all of the parts we're going to need for assembly A. We have part 1, 2 of part 2, part 3, 4, 2 of part 5, 2 of part 6, 7, and 8. We'll need your lubricant ready, or the wax, for a couple of stages here. So first thing first, we're going to take part 1 in this orientation with these etched areas facing up. It doesn't have it on the bottom, so with these etched areas facing up, we're going to take one of these part 2s and let's see if I can figure out how to orientate this. There we go. In this orientation, in that hole in the bottom, is where that peg there will go. So we'll just push this thing in, and it actually does hold nice and tight. Now we're going to take part 3 here, and these 2 pegs on either side here, we're going to wax those things up. So I've got some wax on my brush here. I'm just going to get all up in there. All right, with that waxed up, that peg right there is going to go into the round hole up here, just like that. And then you're going to have to balance it a little bit because you're taking the other number 2, and that's going to go on here. That peg there into the bottom hole, and that peg into the round one. All right, with that in place, move this up and down a few times to make sure your lid is working properly and is lubricated correctly. All right, with that done, what we're going to do is take part 4 here, and there are 4 pegs on the back and 4 holes for those pegs to go in right here. All right, look at that. Very nice. Now you see these 2 holes here on the side? That is for part 5 here. And we actually have 2 part 5s, and we're going to do the same on both sides. All right, should look like that when you're done. Be careful, that is a very tight fit, and the piece is very small, so it tends to go like this, and you could easily snap that if you are not careful. Now with that done, we're going to take part 7 here. We've got 2 part 6s. what we're going to want to do with this peg facing upwards, we're going to push the 6s in from behind so that that slot there is also facing up. So it should go a little something like that. Push it in nice and tight. So it looks like that. And then we're going to do the same for the other slot. There we go, just like that. And now we have part 8. And these 2 pegs off the top of the lock here, we're going to want to wax those as well. All right, and with that properly waxed, we can just hang it right in those slots right there with those 2 pegs we just waxed. Whew. All right, that was tough. In order to get that in, I actually had to kind of angle it down and push it through the center here. And with one of them in and all the way over, I was able to very carefully nudge this one down into the slot as well. But it's in there now and full motion. All right. Now we have 4 slots right there and 4 pegs here. There's also a slot at the top of this lid, which will eventually go onto this. So right now, let's leave the lid open, and we will go ahead and place this on the front. There we go, just like that. Then we should be able to close the lid and lock it in place. And there we go. That is assembly A. At this stage, if you want, you can actually open her back up. And what we're going to do is place the marbles inside. Doesn't really matter what order they go in, but that is the order shown in the instructions. Doesn't really matter. They're all just marbles, but very cool. So we have a little marble container here. I really hope this integrates into the final piece and is not just some separate little doodad, but we will have to wait and see. And that there completes assembly A. Alrighty, here are all the parts we're going to need for assembly B1. We have part 9, 10, 11, 2 part 12s, 13, 14. There's actually 3 of these part 15s spread throughout. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 2 22s, 23, 2 21s, 22 and 23. And then you're going to need 4 of the smaller rubber bands as well. So let's go ahead and get this together. I'm going to kick things off with part 11 here. And what we're going to do is take part 10, and it's very, very important that you get the orientation correct. This little outcropping here has to face down this line. So this peg will go into that hole, just like this. Okay, in that orientation. Very important. All right. Part 9 here will go in the bottom, just like this. There we go. And now we have 2 of these part 12s, which will go into these 2 holes. Just like that. And now we're going to pull out part 13 here. You see this hole right here? Well, that little peg in there is going to need some wax. So let's get that wax in there. I'm actually going to apply a little more wax all around, just because wood on wood, you're going to want some wax. All right, with that puppy waxed up, what we're going to do here is take part 14 here, and that's going to go into this big hole right there, but make sure this rounded slot is facing this flat edge here. There we go. Should look like that. Then we're going to take our first number 15. There it goes. And that is going to go into this hole. And that rounded slot there is going to be facing this direction. Just like that. Then we're going to take this assembly, and that hole right there is going to go on that peg we just waxed. Just like this. Okay. Make sure you've got some nice smooth motion here, okay? All right. With that done, this little peg right here, you're going to want to get some wax on. And then you're going to want to pull out the second number 11 that I had completely forgotten about when I was doing the parts here. So, and that's effectively going to mirror this one. So that peg we just waxed, it's going to go right there. And then everything else should line up. The slots for here and so on. All right, so you should have something that looks like this and moves like that. And on these two pegs here on the end is where we have part 16. There we go, very clearly a button of some sort. Very cool. Now we're going to come underneath. We're going to take our first rubber band. And this little bit right here, we're going to hook the rubber band around it. If you need to, get some tweezers out for this. All right, so it should have hooked like that. And the other end is going to hook right in there in the hollow of part 14, just like that. So now you have a button that does this. Fully functional. How cool is that? All right, next up, we're going to take part 17 here. And in that hole, coming in from the outside, we have another part 15 here. Make sure that the hollow area is facing this long stretch. So it should look like that when you're done. And now we can bring this assembly back out, and this will slide into this slot. This whole big part here should slide in there somehow, with this large piece going into that gap right there. So it may require a little finagling, like this, putting it in at an angle like this first, then bringing it back and down from there. Look at that. And then we can just push it all in place. There are two pegs here and one peg on the back, which should all line up with holes. And we should be able to just push it all in place. Look at that. Okay, as always, make sure any moving parts continue to function and are not being obstructed. All right, next up, we're going to need yet another 15 that I missed when I was pulling this stuff out. A lot of duplication here. And that's going to go on to part 18. This time, that little hollow will face these three posts. So let's get that in. Just like that. Now these pegs on either side are going to have to get some wax on them. So let's get that done too. All right, with that done, We're going to place it into this round hole right there with part 15 facing down. So you're going to have to go in at an angle to go in. There it goes. All right. And it should come up and down relatively easy, but it's not connected on the other side just yet. And that is where part 19 is going to come in. And you'll notice one side has 2 pegs, one side has 1. The 2 peg side is actually going to go into this hole and then that little slot right there. Okay? Make sure the hollow is facing up because this number 15 is going to go into that hollow or be right next to it. There we go, just like that. Now, with these 2 15s right here, we're going to want to connect those with one of these smaller rubber bands. So again, get some tweezers in if you need to get that all in place. And it should look a little something like that when you're done. Now, I noticed that when I push this up with our button here, see it gets caught, but I think part of that is because there's nothing here to help align it. So as long as it's aligned, it goes up and down fine. So let's see what's next, since this is clearly not done. All right. Next up, we have part 20 and 221s. And these are going to slide on here. Now, there's a weird thing. It says wax on these, on all 3, actually. It says wax, but I don't know where. So let me look at the instructions to see if I can figure this out. Aha! I have figured this out. Okay. So basically what's going to happen here is this is going to slide on in. So we can go ahead and do that. Just like this. And do the same for the other side. Just like that. Now, here's the deal. This edge here, from this flat all the way down, and about the same distance on the other side, as well as all of this flat area here on the outside, and same here. It's all going to be rubbing wood on wood. The bottom probably will for this as well. So that we need to get some wax on there because it's going to be wood on wood all around. Let's get that done. And if you wax a little too far, not a big deal. I would suggest not waxing up to here, like past this, because I'm assuming this is where a finger is going to go. And you'll see what I mean in a minute. All right, so with this puppy all waxed up, I'm going to bring this back out. You'll see a big long slot right there. The shorter end here is going to go in there in this orientation, okay? And if you want, you can do this to make sure that you got everything all waxed up. Now, we're going to take part 22 and yet another 15. And this is going to go into that slot with the hollow facing away from this larger hole. Just like that. And that large handle here is going to go into that hole. There's another peg here for this hole. Should all slot in nice and neat at that point. Okay, with this in, you'll note that this little peg here is from our little moving object here. And if you'll notice, it still is not quite going all the way down on the return. That's unfortunate. Maybe another rubber band will do it, but I think there's just not enough tension here, and this is the smallest rubber band they've got, so well, I'll have to play with it and see how that works when it comes to time to play, but it is moving just fine. In addition, we've got this moving back and forth, very nice and smooth. I think this is going to be our ball launcher, to be honest. Because you can see there's 2 slots here and 2 slots here. You guessed it, 2 more rubber bands. So let's go ahead and get those on. There we go. There we go, look at that. That's how we launch our balls. Very nice. And with those rubber bands in place, we can well, it's weird. Something doesn't seem right here, and I'm not sure what, because everything's lining up. But, there we go. Okay. Just confused on the directional changes in the instructions. So we've got part 23 here. We got this little peg right here, and that is going to go into that hole, not the big slot, into the hole, just like that. All right. And with that in place, this is assembly B1. And it looks like we've got the beginnings of our launch path. Very nice. Not sure what this is for, other than to give me a headache, but other than that, seems to work just fine. Cool. All right, well, let's see what's next. Alrighty, here are the parts that we're going to need to get to assembly B2. You will need this as well. All right, we have another 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. Excuse me, these are both 29s. 30, 31, 30, 2 32s, and 2 33s. I'm going to kick things off by taking part 24 here, and we've got 23. This peg right here, this solo peg, is going to go into that hole, just like that. Just like that. This is 25, which will go into these 2 holes here on the outer edge. All right. Look at that. This is 26. This big thing right here is going to go into that slot, just like that. And then these 2 pegs on the back will line up with these holes. Boom. Look at that. And that, my friends, is where this part 27 comes in. And you've got these 2 pegs here. Well, 3 slots, 2 pegs, however you want to look at it. And then that right there. So it's all going to line up just like this. Look at how beautiful that looks. That's pretty cool, huh? All right. Now, this is part 28. And you'll note there's a lift the ball message on one side. Okay, this is the front. We're going to take the assembly we just did, and that's going to plug in on this side just like this. So you've got a peg right here, and that'll go into that hole, okay? And this peg here will go into that hole. There you go, look at that. That's where we're going to pull this out, and then we'll go on the other side. Same basic concept. There are 2 holes, and there are 2 pegs. There we go. Look at this. Coming along, isn't it? All right. Then we're going to take one of these 29s, and we're going to take part 30. This is the one with the L on it. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to push this in, and orientation is critical here. So make sure that this hollow is facing this flat end. All right, just like that. Now we're going to have to get some wax in here. This peg here on the bottom needs some wax. And then you can see this little ridge right here. From there all the way up to here on both sides and all around is also going to need some wax. So let's go ahead and get all of that waxed up. If you're not already, please make sure you're sanding all of your parts before you apply them. You definitely want to get rid of any burrs and potential splinters and things like that. Okay, with this all waxed up, we're going to take this, we're going to flip it over, and just like this, this is going to slide into this slot right here. Okay, it is important, very important, that you get the orientation on this correct. So make sure, there we go, just like this. Rub it back and forth so that it's nice and smooth, and that hollow is facing up in this area, okay? Now we've got the other 29, and this will be 31, and it's effectively going to be the same thing on the other side. So let me go ahead and get that done. All right, so here we are. We've got these 2 posts facing, well, down, really, when it's like this. And all of this moving just fine. Now, on the ends of these, for each one, we have a 32 that will slide on just like this. And then we'll follow it up with 33 printed side facing outward, just like that. Okay, and then we'll do the same thing for the other side. There you go, look at that. All right, and that, my friends, is B2. All right, let's see what's next. Alrighty, here are the final remaining pieces necessary to finish assembly B. We have 34, 35, 36, 37, and 2 38s, along with our B2 assembly that we've completed thus far. This should be a pretty easy section. We're going to take part 34 and part 35 here, and that little peg right there is going to go into that hole there. There we go. Should look like that when you're done, and that is where we will take part 36, and that peg here in the center of the curve is going to come up from underneath into this hole right there. There we go, just like that. Orientation is key on all of this, okay? Now we're going to take part 37, and in these 2 holes here, we've got part 38. Now you'll notice there's a flat peg and an angled peg. Okay, the flat peg is going to go into here with the angle going over top of it like this. Just like that. And then we're going to do it again right there. All right, look at that. Then we're going to bring this back out. We've got these two posts here and here. That is for these two holes. And then this hole in the back will come in right there. And there you go. Look at that. Spectacular. All right, now we're going to bring this out. And you'll note there are 3 holes right there. That is for these 3 pegs. So it should come in just like this, okay? So let's go ahead and get that in. It looks like there is a clearance issue on this side, but once we get those pegs in, it should be just fine. All right, and sure enough, there we go. Look at that. And it looks like this little hole right here lets out right on top of our assembly here. And it is slightly angled, which will drag it all right back into that, this little hole here, which looks like, yeah, I don't know. I think it's going to drop down here and go somewhere else, but maybe not. Maybe pushing this up will actually push a ball out of here, and that would actually be kind of cool. Let me test this. I don't know if I can because not everything is set yet, but if I drop this in, ball rolls down. Look at that. All right. And then, okay. Come on. You got to admit, that's pretty awesome. That's pretty awesome. All right. Well, that, my friends, completes assembly B. And we are now ready to proceed. Alrighty, here are the parts we're going to need for assembly C1. We have 39, 40, 41, 3 42s, 3 43s, 6 44s, 3 45s, 3 46s, 47, 2 48s, 49, 4 50s, and 2 51s. See what we can do about getting all this together. All right, we're going to kick things off by taking part 39 here and part 40. You notice there's a very long pin and a short pin. That long pin is what's going to go into this hole. You're going to want to push this all the way down. There we go. So it looks like that. And then we're going to take 41 here. And with the arrow facing up in this direction, it'll go onto those 2 pins. There you go. Just like that. And these little posts coming off the edges, you're going to want to make sure we get those things waxed. So let's get that done. All right, so this little bit's done. Now, what we're going to do is take 42 here and 43, and that large post is going to go into that hole in this orientation. Okay, orientation is key here. So let's go ahead and get that in. All right, just like this. And now what we're going to want to do is wax these pins on either side, as well as this upper section and this lower section. So let's go ahead and get all that waxed too. Okay, much like this. And now you're going to want to do it 2 more times. So let's get all of that together and I'll be right back. All right, now we have 3 of those. Now what we're going to do is take 44 here. We're going to place it into these 2 holes. We're going to need 2 of these 44s, 1 for each hole. All right, should look a little something like that when you're done. And then you're going to take 46 here, and that'll go right onto those 2 pegs. Just like this. These are tight. There we go, just like that. And then we're going to want to wax these 2 pegs coming off the bottom. There we go. And now we want to do that 2 more times. So let me get that done and I'll be right back. All right, and now we have 3 of those. Next up, this is gonna be fun. We have 48. And we have 47. Okay, now 47 is going to go in here like this. This tab right here is going to go in here. Now it's got to slide up and down, which you know what that means. These tabs on either side are going to have to be waxed. Okay, and then we'll come in here. Make sure it goes up and down nice and neat in this orientation. Now, what we're going to do is take this assembly, and that peg right here is going to go into that hole, and make sure this goes between these legs here. So it should go like that. Okay? With all that in place, this should go like so. Just like that. And this one will go up top just like that. And then we're going to take the other 48 here, and that's going to close it in just like this. So let's go ahead and make that happen. Should look a bit like this when you're done. So, yeah. Okay. All right. Now, what we're going to want to do is pull out 49 here. And in this center hole, this assembly, this little arrow here, is going to go through that big hole in the middle. And there's 2 tabs here, and those will go into those 2 holes right there. I'm mistaken. This is actually not going to go in there. That big hole is for this thing. There we go. There we go. Should look like that when you're done. Yeah, look at that. Okay. So that's the kind of motion you're looking for. Okay, make sure you've got it reasonably smooth. It's hard because you're squeezing this because this isn't attached to anything, but you know, should be reasonably smooth. Not sure exactly what this is for, but I assume, yeah, this is supposed to come on down just like that when we're done. So, all right, cool. Well, that takes care of that. And now what we're going to want to do is take part 50 here, and we're basically going to be doing the same thing, except now we've got part 51. These edges here will need to be waxed, and that will go into the small one just like that. Okay. And everything else will follow a very similar path. So this will come in underneath and through just like that, with one of these coming in like so, and another 50 to close in the other side, just like that. Okay, and this is going to come in here with this big post here coming through that large slot right there. All right, now we're going to do exactly the same thing and put it into this section. So let me get that done. I'll be right back. All right, and there we go. All three are in and looking, well, about as good as they can at the moment. Looking forward to getting everything affixed on all sides and seeing how this works. In the meantime, however, that is the end of assembly C1. So let's see what comes next. Alrighty, here are the parts we're going to need to complete assembly C2. We have, what is this? This is 52. We have 4 part 14s. 53, 3 little rubber bands, 54, and 55. We're going to kick things off with 52 here. We're going to take 2 of these part 14s, and they're going to go into this hole and this hole with the hollow facing down. Make sure you're looking at the front, which has the L and the R on it. Whew, finally got those in. Man, this is really hurting my fingers. These connections are very tight and these pieces very small. So I'm pulling out the rubber hammers, I'm pulling out the tweezers, anything I can to get these things in without actually breaking them. It is painful. But next up is part 53 here. The side with this little hollow here, that's going in this center hole right here, again with the hollow facing down. So let's go ahead and get that in. Yeah, see, much better when you actually have something to grip. Now with all of that done, these little crown tabs here, you're going to want to get those all waxed up. All right, and you'll notice 6 holes here along the bottom. Well, we're going to bring this back out, and there just happens to be 6 pegs right there. So take a wild guess at where this is going to go. That's right. Also, you'll notice there are 2 pegs on the top. Those are going to go into these 2 slots. So let's go ahead and push this all together. All right, look at that. Very, very nice. Now, with all of that in place, it's time for our rubber bands. And they're basically going to hook from the hollows down here. I'm starting with the center one because you're going to want to get this over this long pole. And they're going to go over these little mushroom pegs in the center. There you go. There's the center one. So you can see how that works. Very nice, huh? Now you're going to want to do the same for the left and right as well. So let's get those in. All right, so there's the rubber bands. Man, that was a pain. Getting it over those mushroom pegs, absolute nightmare. Now the premise is that you should be able to do this for all of them. However, for mine, this one keeps getting stuck. So there's very clearly something somewhere sticking it around. So let me take a look-see. I'll see if I can figure out what it is, get it lubed up or sanded or whatever, and I'll be right back. Alrighty. As you can see, I seem to have fixed it. Basically what I did is I got some more lube in here and in the slot on the other side, and I pushed this all the way up so that it pushed forward and locked. And when it did, I sanded the edges here and lubed up these sides, and I sanded down these pegs a little bit as well. And now it seems to work just fine. So we seem to be good. All right. Well, let's move on. You know, I've been playing with these a little more, and I think what they're actually supposed to do is you push them all the way up so that these actually do push forward and lock. Now, I could be wrong, but I think that's the point. So when a ball hits them, boom, see? And I think that's the case for all 3 of these. So they should all be able to go like this and lock in place. And then a ball hits them, boom, boom, and boom. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think that's what they're supposed to do. And it looks like mine are at least doing that. So that's cool. All right, next up, we're gonna wanna take part 54 here. And we've got 2 more of these 14s. Now they're going to come in from underneath when this is in this orientation into these 2 holes, and the little hollows in them are going to be facing towards the outside. So let's get both of those in. All right, should look a little something like that when you're done. And now we're going to take this. This is part 55. And again, the front has the L and the R. And those are going to come in like this. So these will go into the big holes, and these will go into the small holes. All right, should look like this when you're done. Make sure you push this all the way down so you've got the little pegs coming out, and of course, these giant posts there. And then in this hole right here, that is where this peg will go. All right, and there we go, nice and tight. Now you can set it down like this, and of course, give your little things here another test run to make sure it's all good. And if so, we have completed assembly C2. Let's see what's next. Alrighty, here are the parts we're gonna need to get to assembly C3. We have 56, 2 57s, 4 58s, 59, and both of these are 60. We're also gonna need this really big rubber band. Now this is where things get a little interesting. First things first, with this rubber band, you're gonna wanna snip it. Just like that. And then you're gonna wanna cut off 4 1 centimeter or 10 millimeter lengths. Those lengths, if you get it right, should just about cover one of these holes. So let me go ahead and cut off these lengths, and I will be right back. All right, so here we've got our 1 centimeter lengths of rubber band. We're gonna pull out 56 here. We're gonna go ahead and cover that big hole with one of our rubber bands. And then we're gonna take one of these 58s. Note the hole in 58. That'll go like this, okay? That is critically important. Now, what's the purpose of the rubber band? Don't know. But they want it in there, so we're gonna put it in there. I'm sure there's gotta be a reason for it, right? Should look something like this when you're done. And now you're gonna do it again right here. Getting those in is really a pain. Thank God I've got this little rubber tipped hammer. All right, both are in. As you can see, the little hole is facing the same direction on both. And now we're gonna pull out one of these 57s. And again, make note of where that hole is, because the opposite direction, the opposite corner there, that peg is gonna go into that hole, just like this. There you go, beautiful. Now that we've got that done, we're basically gonna do the same thing for part 59. The only real difference is, you notice how all of these pegs are facing out? All of these pegs will also face out, so it looks a little opposite. You can see where this copyright is. But the holes in these are gonna be facing the same direction. They're all gonna be facing that way. So let's go ahead and get all of that in too. All right. Now we've got 2. Very nice. And with that done, we're gonna pull this puppy out. And in this orientation, okay, with these posts towards the back where this stuff is, on the edge, you'll notice there's this little groove and then a rounded groove. In that little groove, it's gonna go into these slots here. There is some on the front and back. We're gonna do it on either side, just like that. So let me go ahead and get these in. I will show you what it looks like. All right, just like this. Notice the bottom here is flush with this here on both. So make sure you got this thing lined up just right, and it should sit nice. Now I've got a bit of a bend here in the middle of my table, but it should fit pretty nice. Now we're going to take one of these 60s, make sure the curve is going in this direction. We're basically going to slide it through, and right above the L here, it'll go right in there. And you note the post that L is on, that'll go into this hole in the center of our beam. And with it down and flush, it should be able to move a lot like this. And we're going to do the same on the other side. For this one will end up like on top of this, so they will cross. Just like this. And again, it should rotate very smooth. Very nice. And that is C3. Now with C3 done, we get to do some real fun stuff here. So let's start working towards getting C4 complete. First, we're going to need 2 more 10mm lengths off of this. Now these 10mm lengths are going to go over this hole and this hole. And what we're going to do is pull out, whoa, look at that. My camera moved. Let me tighten things up a little bit here. There we go. We got this assembly that we made before. And this hole in the back, that is going to go into this tab, the rear tab on those little T-posts. And there's a bunch of other holes that are all going to line up. And right towards the front, we've got this and this. That's where those rubber bands are going to go. So let's go ahead and get everything in as best we can. Okay, so we finally got this in, and I gotta tell you, man, there were so many aspects of this the instructions were not clear on at all. I mean, like, at all. Number one, these areas here that are moving back and forth, that's got the pegs, have to go into these center holes, okay? So make sure they line up properly when you do. There are these pegs, and these pegs that will go in, as well as these little pegs right here on the sides. And that is in addition, of course, to these 3 pegs on either side that we already discussed. Now, there's something that frankly I don't know where it goes. It keeps showing something like in this area, but I have no idea what it's trying to show me. So I think it has to do with the rubber bands, but I'm not sure. I hope I've got that right. But with that done, We're gonna need 2 of these smaller rubber bands here. And if you take a look right here at the L and R posts, they've got that groove, that hollow there, and then there's another hollow next to it. So we're going to attach these 2 and then another rubber band to attach these 2. All right, much like that. And with that in place, these posts are going to go into the corresponding holes within these, just like that. And there we go, just like that. So now we can move them independently. Look at that. Very, very cool. All right, let's see what's next. All right, next up, we're going to take 61 here, and on this side of the assembly, it's going to go in here. So we've basically got 3 little slots right here, and then 2 more on either side of this post. And the little slider mechanism here is going to go into this gap in 61. So let's go ahead and get that all in, just like that. Very nice. And now we're going to use part 62 to do exactly the same thing on the other side. Absolutely perfect. Look at this. That is great. All right. Well, with that done, we have completed assembly C4. Let's see what's next. Alrighty, y'all. Here are the parts we're going to need to go from assembly C4 to completed assembly C. And things are getting large. So I've raised the camera up as high as I possibly can, and hopefully that will be sufficient. I'm not going to go through every one of these. You need all of the parts from part 64 all the way down to 2 part 83s. You're also going to need 2 58s and 5 more of these 15s. This should be fun. This should be fun. All right. First thing we're going to do is take, excuse me, this is actually 63, not 64. But we're going to take 64 here. We're going to wax up that pin right there. All right. And with this pin fully waxed, we're going to take 65, and that center hole is going to go right on that pin we just waxed. Make sure it spins freely, just like this. And now we're going to take this pin, and that's going to go into that hole right there. Orientation matters. Notice that this has this little outlier piece here with the 2 pins on it. Make sure that is on the left as you put this in through the front. Just like that. Okay. You're going to want to make sure that this still spins freely. Okay. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to set this down for a moment. Now, both of these are 67. And you see these 3 holes here? This is another one of those where you take the 1 centimeter length of rubber band and cover the large hole in the center. And you take a 58 and plug it in. Make sure that the little hole in 58 is coming towards this rounded, smaller side. So it should go like that. And the same for the other side. So let's get those in. All right. Perfect. Now, with this done, what we're going to do is take this assembly, and these edges here are going to go into those 58s that we just did. Just like this. And now we're going to take this, which is 66, and again, orientation matters here. And this little thing here that's got the 2 pegs on top, that's going to go into this slot here, and then these pegs on either side are going to go into the outer holes. All right, just like this. This should still move smoothly. Be careful with this. This actually does have to go inside this little slot here. And on mine, this outer one kind of cracked a little bit. It's in now, but you want to be real careful about how you get that pushed in place. But when it's fully down, everything should line up and this should move nice and smooth. Beautiful. Now, we got to bring this back out. And these pegs right here and here on the bottom, those are going to go into this hole right there and this hole here. So let's go ahead and get all that plugged in. All right, so it should look like that when you're done. This thing is getting absolutely massive. All righty, next up, actually we're gonna flip this around a little bit, I think. No, I had it right the first time. Okay. Now we're going to take part 69 here. We've got 2 of these 15s. One is going to go into this little hole up here, and the hollow in 15 is going to face the upper edge. So it should look like that when you're done. The other one is going to go into this hole with the hollow in 15 facing down. So it should look like that. So you got one on either side here. Now we're going to take 68 in this orientation, and this peg right here is going to go into this hole. There we go, look at that. Spectacular. Now with that done, okay, looks like this hole here and this hole here will go onto this peg and this peg. And then there's this peg right here, which will go into this hole right there. Look at that. It's wonderful, isn't it? All right, now we're going to take another 15 and part 71. This 15, hollow side up, is going to go into this hole right there. Just like that. Now we have 70, again, peg, slot. There we go. And this will attach on this side the same way. This hole, and this peg. Look at this. Come on, you gotta admit, that's pretty awesome. All right. Next up, we have 72. And we're gonna put, you know what, let's start with 74 here. We got 74. Make sure this little hole right here is facing left when you put this on. And it's gonna go in this hole on that peg right there in the bottom, just like this. Now you've got 73. And what we're going to do is we're going to take these two 76s here, and they're going to go into these two holes. Just like that. Make sure the orientation is in this way so that you've got this little angled peg coming over top here. Do that for both. Just like that. And now this hole here will go onto that peg right there. There you go. Look at that. Okay. Now we have two of these 75s. See that little hole right there? Make sure that is facing up in this orientation, okay? You'll notice there are like two slots on either side. Those are for these two slots here. So let's get all of that together. All right, should look like that when you are done. And now we've got 77 here and 78. 77 is the longer one. And it is going to go, let me sand that edge a little bit there. There we go. Now 77, that little bit right there is going to go into this outer slot. Just like that, with 78 going on the other side. Just like this. All right. Now comes the fun part. Basically, this is going to have to slide inside our assembly. And there are a lot of places that are going to be key here. Way down here, and I can't seem to find a way to get them on camera. Let me try this. Right here and right here are two pegs that'll go for these two holes right here. Okay? Then over here, you can see there are two pegs on this. That is for these two holes. Okay? Then you've got these two holes right here. That is for these two pegs on the end. So let's go ahead and get this in. It's going to have to slide in this way. I found that the easiest way is to actually push it through this gap here and just kind of turn it as you go. Just like this. Trying to keep everything intact as best you can. There we go. And then we will try to get all of these pegs in place. Now, according to the instructions, you're going to want to do these ones first, then these middle ones, then the ones at the end. So that is how I will do it. All right, there we go. All the way down. Now, I'm going to take one of our marbles here and give this a test. Make sure, yep, Marble goes all the way down and is now ready to eject once more. So I'm guessing this is where the goals are. And if you score a goal, Marble will come in and then come on down and be ready to rock and roll. Awesome. 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 All right. So with all of that done, we're going to bring out part 79, and we're going to need to put in 2 more 15s. Now they're going to go into these 2 holes here on the bottom with the hollow facing the back or the top here. So let's make that happen. All right, should look like that. Now we're going to take 80, these 2 pegs, those 2 holes. All right, now you're going to want to wax this area here. See, it's going to slide into this slot. Okay, and this is going to be fun to get in because in the end, it's going to have to come over top of this railing and land on this, kind of like that. Okay, but it's got to come through this slot first. And I'm not at all sure how we're going to manage that. Well, maybe like this. Okay. It's going to be a tight fit. Let's just put it that way. But there is going to be some motion in here. So you're going to want to make sure that any of the parts that are going to affect this get waxed. So let me get that done. All right, with that wax in place, I'm going to try and slide this in. All right, so yeah, it should be something like this. Now, if you come to the other side, you'll notice, here, let's see, these 2 mushroom pegs, okay? Those 15s here should line up on the other side of those mushroom pegs. So what we're going to do, and it is important to note that these pegs here and here go in through, here. So you don't want this too far out. So about like that, right there. With that done, what we're going to want to do is take 2 of these small rubber bands, and you're going to want to twist to make a little figure 8 and then fold it over so you've effectively got a double rubber band here. And it's going to go over the mushroom peg and then the 15. So let's see what I can do to make that happen. All right, so there we go. That is done, and now we're going to take the remaining pieces here. We're going to build this out. So we're going to take 81 here, and it looks like 81 is going to go on these outer little corners here into these 2 slots. Okay, just like that. 82 will go onto the next set of pegs. Note that there's still peg here. Okay, 82 goes into this little slot here just below. And now we're going to our 2 83s, and these 2 holes will go into these 2 pegs on both sides. All right, should look like that when you're done. Give it a test and see if I can figure out how this is supposed to work. Okay, I got this thing figured out now. So, this part right here actually needs to sit on top of this rear railing right there. So that when you push the new game button in, which, there you go, you can see how it's creating a much larger hole. So when you enter, or when you put your balls in to start the game, or whenever you lose a ball, you can see that they are unable to pass. And when you're ready to start a new game, you push, in it goes. How freaking cool is that, right? And that completes assembly C, and we are ready to move on. Alrighty, y'all. So here are the parts we're going to need for D1. We have 8 84s, 8 85s, 8 86s, 16 87s, 8 88s, and 16 89s. What we're going to do is we're going to take 84 here, and one of these 86s, and that little hole in the middle is going to go on that bottom peg. So let's go ahead and make that happen. Just like that. Looks like I missed a little burr. Not a problem. Little sand and we'll be good. Now we're going to take 85 here. And this hollow is actually going to go over this post with this hole on that peg. Just like that. Now on this peg and this peg, I'm going to do 87s. Just like that. 88 here, that hollow in the bottom is going to go into that groove there. Just like that. And on these pegs on either side, we got 2 89s. So let me get those in. All right, and this is what you're left with. Now we need to do this 7 more times. All right, and there we go. We now have 8 of them, and that completes D1. Alrighty, these are the parts we need for D2. We have 90, 91, 92, and 93. So we're going to take one of our D1s here. You'll note this peg here and this peg here. Well, this peg will go into 90 right in that hole there, just like that. 91 will go on the other side, same way. Boom, look at that. Now we're going to take 92 here, and that'll go onto these 2 pegs in the back into these 2 holes right there, just like this. Boom. And then in this slot and that one, we've got 93. And orientation matters, so look at the design on the front. And there you go. That is D2. Now we're going to bring this out and we're going to place it. Now these 2 pegs here on the bottom, those are going to go into these 2 holes right here. You also note there are 3 little pegs right there. Those will go into these 3 holes right there. So let's get this all lined up and get these pegs in, and I'll show you what it looks like. All right, There you go. Look at that. And D2 is complete. All right, here are the parts we need for D3. We have another 93. We've also got 94, 95, and 96. We're going to pull out another one of these D1s, and it will go together exactly the same way as the last one. And we'll plug in right here on the other side of the new game section. So let me just go ahead and get that done. And there it is. All right, 2 towers down. Let's see what's next. Alrighty, now before we can move on to D4, we have to get some supports in. So we have 97, 98, and 2 99s. I'm going to start with 97 here. That's going to come over here, and there are 4 posts right here on this corner. Those will go into these 4 slots. So let's get that in. All right, well, it kind of happened automatically for me, but there's also a little peg right here that ended up going in. You can see the peg on the 98 here, and that will go in right there. And of course, 98 will go on the opposite side just the same way. So let's get that in. All right, look at that. Now, on this side, we're going to take 99 here. You can see 3 pegs at the top. That's for these 3 slots right there. And there is 1 slot just below for that peg there. So let's get all of that in as well. Just like that. Beautiful. And then we're going to take the other 99 and do exactly the same thing on the other side. Look at that. All right, and with all of that done, we are ready to begin D4. All right, here's what we're going to need for D4. We have another 93. We have 100, 101, 102, and then this is 106 and 107. These will combine with a D1 exactly as before, so let me get that in. All right, and with this together, we're going to bring this puppy back out again. And that little hole right there is going to go onto this peg right here. That little peg will go into this upper hole right there. So let's get all of that in. And then this peg here will go into the slot right below, just like that. Beautiful. Now, we have 106 and 107. And those are going to go in here in those slots. 107 is the easier one. That's in the middle, so it doesn't really matter. 106 is the lower one. Notice it's got this little outgrowth right here, okay? Make sure that is facing where the new game section is, okay? So it'll go like this. Let's go ahead and get those in. There you go. It should look like that when it's done, and we can move on. Alrighty, here are the parts we're going to need for D5, and as you might suspect, it goes exactly like D4 with one little exception. On the bottom of these parts, this is 103 and 104. It's got a little peg. And when we're going in on the opposite side here, you can see there are 2 holes right here. That's where those pegs will go. Other than that, everything else is identical, including on the 106 here. You've got that little outgrowth, and that'll have to go towards the new game button side when you assemble it. So let me just go ahead and get all this in, and I'll be right back. And there we go. D5 is complete. All right, let's see what's next. Alrighty, here's what we need for D6. This one's slightly different. First, we're going to take 103 and 108 here, and we're going to put those on either side just like normal. There we go, just like that. Now we're going to take 109 here, and we've got 110. 110 has that little peg right there. That's going to go into that hole right there, the wider hole. So let's get that in. So it looks like this. Now it will go on the back just like normal with a 93 on the front. Again, just like normal. So let's go ahead and make that happen. All right, so that's what you're left with. And now we bring this back out. Now, that hole right there is going to go onto this peg right here. And these 2, of course, will go into the base. So let's make that happen. Oh, and of course, there is this peg here that will go into this hole up here. All right, so that is what you're left with. Now, we're going to take 114, which has these 2 little outgrowths here. That's the bottom row with these coming in towards the playing area. 115 goes in the middle. 116 is the upper level with these slots facing the outside of the piece. But they will go in between these 2 towers, just like all of the rest. So let me go ahead and get all of that in too. All right, should look like that when you're done. And that completes D6. All right, here are all the parts that we're going to need for D7. And this is going to assemble just like all the rest that we have done. No special items like last time. And it will go on the opposite side of the piece. Again, just like always, right in here with these 2 slots right there for the pegs at the bottom of these. So let me go ahead and get all that done. I'll be right back. Alrighty, there you go. Look at that. 6 towers completed. Looking wonderful. Let's see what's next. Alrighty, here are all of the parts that we're going to need for D8 and D9. As I'm sure you guys have guessed by now, they're going to assemble and attach exactly the same way as all the rest that we've done. So I'm just going to go ahead and get it taken care of rather than force y'all to watch me go through it again. And we'll show you what the end result looks like. And there we go. D8 and D9 complete. And now we have all 8 towers. Let's see what's next. Alrighty, here are the parts we need to finish off assembly D. We have 122, 2 123s, and 124. And what we're going to do here, bring us back out again. 123 will be, or excuse me, 122 here will be the lower level. I don't know what this is actually. I guess seating. So it'll go into the lower hole right there and on the other side, just like that. All right. Now we're going to make sure that it's sitting on top of this little outcropping right there. Okay. And now we've got our 123s. And you'll notice there's a flat end and an angled end. The flat end is what will go into the tower. The angled side will go into the slot right here, and same on the other side. Just like that. And finally, 124. And of course, these will go into the upper level, and the rest should go around this assembly here. So it should look like that when you are done. Absolutely spectacular. And that, my friends, completes assembly D. And with that, we are about halfway through on this build. And just look at how amazing this is so far. That is looking great. We've got our marble box here, assembly A. We've got all 8 towers. We've got ball return for scoring. We've got the entry for the balls, as well as the lock and new game button for lost balls or the beginning of a match. We have both of these wonderful little flipper buttons. We've got this right here, which I'm assuming is going to be like a guard or a goalie or something. And of course, these center assemblies right there. Wonderful. Bob Holleran, I thank you. I am having an amazing time building this. Can't wait to see what comes next, but for now, we're going to have to call it. I hope you all enjoyed the video. If you did, please remember to like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Have a great day.